Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to episode 4 of my season 2 of My Vulva and Me. This is our Doctor's Week. We had an amazing time on Tuesday with Dr. Sharice Chambers and Dr. Natalie Matherin, our MDs for season 2. And now we have a full panel of amazing, I say this every episode, but I mean it every episode. I literally stand for these women, Dr. Tracie Gilbert, Dr. Donna Oriowo, and Dr. Zelaika Hepworth Clarke. All of them I come to know from my time at Widener University, and I am just this whole experience. Again, I said it on Tuesday, but Lord, who am I that you are mindful of me, that I get to be in the space of this greatness? Honestly. So we're going to talk this episode, 50 Shades of Black. We're going to get into different presentations and representations of Black women. We'll dig into colorism, texturism, and this whole, I want to call it beef, but I don't want to call it beef, but this whole Kamala, Stacey type of situation and why that's even a thing. And I don't even like that, but we're going to talk about it. And y'all remember when they changed I'm Viv? I'm still mad about that. But we're going to get into all of that and more tonight, so just stick with us.
My vulva, vulva and me. My vulva, my vulva and me. My vulva and me.
Oh, yes. I get all the warms and fuzzies after our intro sang by none other than Brandy Briz Grove. Be sure to follow her at the Briz Rashad Experience on Instagram. Check out her new podcast, Does It Still Knock? Episode 2 is premiering this Friday. So we're going to jump right in and meet our amazing panelists for tonight. Hey, y'all!
Hey!
Y'all cute!
Hello!
Hello. Welcome. Thank you again. I want to publicly acknowledge my appreciation for you all. You all are doing all the things, and the fact that you are taking this time to be with me today, I am so honored and so humble, and it's not anything that I take lightly, because I know y'all have thousands of other things that y'all could be doing, but y'all here a little on me, and I truly appreciate it. So, as per custom for My Vulva and Me, I feel like Black women need the space to big themselves up and let their drippy Black girl magic drippiness all over the interwebs and say, this is what I do, and I'm bomb at it, and just run it with pride. So we're going to start with Dr. Z, then Dr. Donna, Dr. Tracie. Just introduce yourself, tell everybody who you are, what you do, and why you so bomb at what you do.
I am Dr. Zelaika Hepworth Clarke Carnegie, and I identify as a loveologist and eroticologist. I am an African-centered social worker, and I co-founded a decolonial sexuality studies program at Goddard College in Vermont, and I am currently practicing clinical sexology.
Ooh. Awesome. Thank you. An eroticologist? Is that what you said?
Yeah. I'll big up Audre Lorde and the power of eroticism.
I love it. I love it. Just feels good coming off the tongue. Eroticologist. I enjoy it so much. Dr. Donna.
Hey, y'all. I'm Dr. Donna Oriowo. I'm a sex and relationship therapist in the Washington, D.C. metro area. My specialty is in how colorism and texturism impact our mental and our sexual health. I don't know why I'm the bomb. It's just in the DNA.
Hey, it just is. I can't give it to Awesome. Thank you so much. And Dr. Tracie.
Yes, all right. So to round it out, I'm Dr. Tracie Gilbert. I use she, her pronouns. I'm originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, but I'm currently in South Jersey. I am the owner of Thembi Anaiya, which uses conversation to help achieve wellness and healing for Black people. So that's why I'm dope. because I get in there and I help us think through the things that we wouldn't get in a standard sex ed classroom, and use that for the purposes of empowerment and getting out from under some of these chains that we've been dealing with. So very happy to be here.
Awesome. That is so amazing. And I am Brittany Broaddus-Smith, founder of the intimacy firm and creator of My Vulva and Me, the web series. And I'm also the visionary author of My Vulva and Me, the anthology that is releasing to the public on November 28th in honor of my dear mother who passed away in 2017. We're honoring her on the 28th to make that day a happier time. My Vulva and Me, the anthology was created just as the web series was created for, by, and about Black women. And I literally mean for, by, and about. The cover art, Black women. The art inside, Black women. The authors, Black women. The publisher, Black women. The creator, the brainchild, all of the things, and the purpose and the heart behind it is all for Black women to be able to see themselves and feel like they're not alone in this world, and to normalize their experiences, and then also call out some nonsense that just happens to be our experience and shouldn't be. Like, there's a lot of collective trauma in these stories that I'm just like, why is that our lot in life? And so we're going to talk about some of those things today. But again, as is per custom for My Vulva and Me, y'all know I live for a good game. And I didn't even create the game this time. This is a game that we're going to play because we're getting into what Blackness is tonight. We're going to play a game called For the Culture by the company Because of Them We Can, who are also Black people. I can't say for sure if it's all, I know it's not all Black women, but Black women work there, so it still counts. So the way the game works is there are letters on this card that stands for, in this theme, this categories are daily sayings. And so I'll turn the card around, and then you'll have the opportunity, if you know it, to say it out loud, and then I'll try in my head to keep score who's actually the champion of the culture. Okay? Any questions?
I'm nervous.
Let's go.
Okay, so I'm gonna start. Oh, some of these is. Oh, this is a good one because y'all are professional or whatnot. This is a good one. All right, ready?
Ooh.
Pay me. Oh no. Ooh.
I don't know. PMLE. Watch it be something we're like, oh my gosh.
So this is something that you would say when you have to gather somebody nicely in the workspace.
Per my last email.
Absolutely, perfect. So Dr. Gilbert, you got that one first. Okay. This one is, you talking a little heavy, and sometimes people will put this on social media, and you're doing a lot of boss things, but you're not really talking about it.
Ooh. Real G's move in silence.
Yes, come. We need to make this like a real life game night type of situation.
I'm pretty good with cultural things.
Okay, this one. So this next one, I feel like this is not like a cultural thing. I mean, it's a colloquialism, but not like uniquely ours. But
let's see.
It's that.
So it's like, all right, we're gonna do this, then we're gonna do that, and then afterwards we're gonna swing by this place, and then the person responds with, okay.
Sounds like a plan. That's not a Black.
Yeah, I don't think that's ours. That's not ours.
We'll take everything. We'll take it.
Now, this is ours, but like real old. I feel like my grandma might have said this before, but this is not something that we say.
Watch this be something I say all the time.
Probably. I mean, possibly. So this is like, are we still going to such and such place? I mean, that's the, sure, if this.
The good Lord, something, and the creek don't rise.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes. The good Lord something and the creek don't rise. I know what this means. It's like, if the Lord said it, If the Lord allows it, the creek don't rise. I
But
don't
what
know
you
what that
for?
means, but I know what the rest of that say.
Okay.
I ain't got nothing.
You got nothing, Dr. Z? You got something? No? Okay, you don't get this point, Dr. Tracie. This is if the good Lord willing.
Willing, the Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. Yes.
Okay, this one.
You know why? Because we don't say where I come from. We don't say the good. We just say the Lord willing and the creek don't rise. If the Lord willing and the creek don't rise, yeah,
it's a lot of unique spaces like the.
It's colloquial. It's
yes. It's based on area, geographic. Yes. Okay, this one. This is us when we tell, because we have a lot of extra flair when we telling our story. So it's like, such and such happened, blank, blank, and the blank. And then I was like, what?
Ooh.
When you're telling the story and you kind of trying to get straight to the point. So this thing happened, and then a couple of things in the middle happened.
Oh.
That one's rough. Let me see.
So it's like
to make no, because I was gonna say to make a long story short, but that's not right. Clearly,
but something
along those lines.
Like he was talking about, my hair, and I didn't have this, and I didn't have blank, blank, and the blank.
Oh, this, that, and the other. Somebody put it
in the third.
Yes. All right. Come on, Dr. Donna, we gotta get you on the board.
Look, I don't think I'm finna be on this board. I don't think it's fast.
You know who's taking the crown on this one.
Well, we have to acknowledge that a lot of these, I don't know, Donna, how long, like what's your connection to Black America? A lot of this is very Black American
stuff.
Very Black American statement.
Very much so. I mean, this one, okay.
Oh. Yasenbao.
We don't get no clues.
Where the clue at?
Okay, this one is all right, let's go play spades, and we're gonna so and so's gonna be my partner. Okay, bet. Blank. The first word is you.
Of course it's you.
Right. Well, I mean, And like, so if somebody's talking heavy and you trying to call their bluff, like, okay, you saying all that, but you ain't really saying nothing. You ain't saying much.
You ain't saying nothing but a word.
That's it.
You ain't said nothing but a word. Okay.
Our culture champion. Everybody give her a clap. Yeah.
So what was funny, while you talk about people talking stuff, I was going to say at the beginning that I would probably win, but I didn't want to talk no stuff.
I'm a little salty that I'm the host, so I couldn't really play. But another setting, I might give you a run for your money.
Well, you probably would, because the only reason I won because you gave us clues. I don't know these acronyms. Look.
I think that's the game, but that's the rules of the game. Like, you're supposed to give clues.
Oh, okay.
Figure it out. Like, just be looking at the words and then be stuck. Okay, so we are talking about Blackness today. We are talking about Black women, obviously, today, and what a lot of these things mean. And so, Dr. Tracie, you mentioned something very specific, important to how we're going to begin the discussion is about Black women and Black sayings and Blackness in America. Mm-hmm. For some, that is a very different experience than Blackness in other places in the world. So as for you all individually, we'll open this with this point. What does it mean to be a Black woman in America? And however that feels for you to answer, what does it mean to be a Black woman in America? And this is girls' night, so we could just everybody jump in, chime in as you see fit.
Wow. Well, since I won, I think the reality of it is that to be a Black woman at any point, but especially in America, is to contain multitudes. Mm. I mean, because the reality is that who we are and who we have evolved from since, time immemorial, but especially since we were first here on this particular land mass, we've become everything. Like, we've grown into so many different areas that there's really no containing us. And I would be remiss not to call in the great Kashawn Thompson, who said Black girls are magic, because it's just like it's beyond that. We're just everything. Like, so we just have multitudes. There's no defining us in any real way, I think.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Dr. Donna, Dr. Zelaika, anything you
I would have
want?
said something, similar, just that there are so many facets of Black womanhood as it relates specifically here in America. That is just like, how does one even begin to contain it? And then when you're adding in these other layers outside of America, because things outside of America impact America and vice versa. If you're adding all that in, like, what does it mean to be a Black woman in America? To me, sometimes it means to constantly be in some level of pain. And maybe that's just what I see as, constantly dealing in pain, right? But it also is to be contradictorily in a space of joy and happiness and making shit happen, making $1 out of 15 cents, like doing what you gotta do. That is also, I think, what it means to be a Black woman in America, constantly doing. And usually it's with a sort of, now excuse my language, but a fuck it, I'll do it sort of mentality.
Absolutely. I think I would echo your sentiments as well, Dr. Donna. Then I also have like just a bit of like collective frustration that, I mean, we gonna do it, we gonna get it done, but the fact that we have to every single time is just like this cultural, like, just angst that just we carry in everything that we do, which makes the way we show up, the way we succeed, the way we are magic, which makes it that much more powerful, knowing what we've had to come through and overcome to make those things happen. Dr. Zelaika,
I mean, speaking of power, I think about a holder of erotic powers and healing intelligence and ability to manifest and be creative and to thrive despite our systematic oppression constantly trying to
right. No, I understand. This is like, I had this thought once a while back, just in general, like at work one day, and I was like, if I stop showing up, like, as far as like metaphorically, if I stop saving the day, if I stop, being the boss that I am, what y'all gonna do? And so it's almost like, and I once, like, I'm on medical leave from work for 6 weeks, which I've never done before. I've never taken that amount of time from work before. And as a program manager, I'm just like, what y'all gonna do without me? And that's a little bit of like, pride, if you will, like, how you going to function, without me? But then I'm realizing that I've been going on 3 weeks now, and ain't nothing stop. So then when I get back to work, I may have to realize that I don't have to paying attention to what I absolutely have to do and what I've decided to do just out of habit, and then how that will impact just my quality of life and well-being at work. So I think about us as Black women, like, what are some things that we could, and this is not on the question list. I know Alice was fussing in the back, like, don't be asking questions that you didn't put on the list. But what are some things that as Black women we probably could put down? Like, what have we picked up that are hours that we could probably put down, and then the world will still stay on its axis?
That's a whole conversation in and of itself, right? Because we just had this election, and one of the things, so I'm sitting with this, and I get that, I may make a lot of folks uncomfortable by saying this. However, one of the things I thought about is how yet again, and this is not a unique thought, right? But how yet again, Black people, and particularly Black women, have come to save this country from itself. And I think about how, while we do it because it's what we are called to do, what we are impelled to do, I also think about how much better our lives might be if we just stopped and was like, you know what, let's just focus on ourselves. Like, whatever that had to look like. if we have to, look, we just gonna build our own communities, we gonna do our own thing together, we're going to pour into each other. Like, there's very few, if any, Black women I know who are not working to build up something else that wasn't for them, like where they're not being centered, whether they're working at a nonprofit, they're working at a job, like some type of corporate job, you know. And I think that, to me, is one of the biggest challenges and one of our biggest opportunities, to be able to say, you know what, let's put all this down, because y'all don't deserve, because you're right. The reality is that you will get your thanks. Thank you so much. Thank you. We love you. You're so irreplaceable. Or, well, not even irreplaceable. We need you. We love you. And as sure as you leave, the goal is either, well, we'll just do half as much, or we'll get another Black femme to come in here and do it and take over your work. And so I'm of the mindset it's a whole lot of shit that we can just go on and let it go, because it's not serving us. It's not serving us.
Yeah.
That's all I talk about in therapy. I feel like I talk about that sort of fuck it, I'll do it attitude. And I'm like, yeah, on the one end, it sounds so cute, so cool, so empowering, but it's also like, no one else is there to help you. No one else is there to give you a hand, to help push you forward. And we get stuck into this cycle where, number one, we don't even allow room for other people to grow.
Yeah.
So I think that when Black women are constantly swooping in to save the day like we fucking Supermans, ooh, let me get my mouth together. I'm sorry, you know I be cussing. I'm gonna get it together, I promise. But when we come in to save the day, we also do not allow other people to rise to the occasion. Mm-hmm. We are giving so much of ourselves that we don't have nothing for us. We done gave it to everybody else out there. So I'm looking like, put it down, stop. Chill. What do you need for you in this moment? What do you need for your individual self? Not your children, not your partner, not your mammy, not nobody. What do you need for you? Then what do you need for your partner? What do you need for your children? What do you need for your friends? What do you need for your community? And it should be in that order, because we are trying to fill up everybody else's cup while we don't have nothing filling up ours. And I don't know about other people, but I keep saying, you are not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Let it burn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I
when
told
it's
y'all,
on fire.
Yeah, I guess
on
on
Facebook, on YouTube, on the Instagram. I told y'all we were going there. I told you they do not hold any punches, and as you can see, we've been in this about 20.
Before we move on from that, can I add another point real quick that I've been thinking about lately? That I think far too often as well, we don't have the honest conversations with ourselves about how we give way more than anybody ever asked. And we don't acknowledge the fact that often we are magic, or I want to stop using that, because I think sometimes that goes further than what Kashawn intended, but we use our awesomeness in ways without acknowledging the mediocre standards that are around us. Wow. To where it's like, we didn't even need to do that much, because people are just so excited with the bare little. And so if we can conserve some of that energy and say, you know what, I'm gonna keep my excellence for the things that matter. I'm gonna keep my excellence for my sisters. I'm gonna keep my excellence for my cousins and my siblings and my friends and the people that I know pouring into them is going to benefit me, because the rest of y'all don't deserve it. You don't.
Where there is reciprocity. Yes. Where there is reciprocity, that is where we pour. Where someone is going to give back into us. We give to every daggone body too daggone freely. They are not giving back to us. And if we save a little bit for us, for our community, I'm looking like the way that Tracie and Zelaika and you, Brittany, that the way that y'all have personally poured into me, I'm looking like I'm supposed to give that away to who?
No. I'm getting greedy. I'm greedy and stingy.
And you know, it's so crazy, because that is so true. And we're saying these things, but it feels like when you think about what the work that we doing every day, and like the self-work that we've done to be able to stand here on a platform such as this to say this is what needs to be done, and then watch our sisters and our cousins and our friends behave differently. It almost feels like putting us first and not setting ourselves on fire for other people to keep warm. That feels countercultural to Black.
Of course. Well, think about it, Brittany. think about it. It's rehearsed, right? Like this is learned behavior. We're not dealing with just new things that we're doing, right? This comes from a legacy of service to other people.
Yeah.
Like it's not a coincidence that Zora Neale Hurston said that the Black woman was the mule of the world. That was literally what we did. That's why we were brought here. And so it's ingrained in us to be of service to everything and everyone but ourselves. And so part of that work that you're talking about, part of the shadow work, part of the healing work is divesting from all of that outward movement and to redirect that energy inward. That's the work. That's the healing work that's called of us. And so I think when you can look at, the four of us here, we can look at, lots of our other folks that, move about the world, you can see that they're different because we recognize it and we've done that healing. Meanwhile, we know lots of us aren't in situations where we can do that, or we don't see ourselves as being able to do that, or we're in situations where we're being penalized for doing that. We have folks telling us we're not good mothers, or telling us we're not good lovers, or telling us we're not good enough in whatever way. And so we're not doing that work of drawing that energy back to ourselves. But that is absolutely,
because we have to, like, to your point, we have to pick that apart. So like Janae Grant put that thing, like we all have heard it. You got to work twice as hard to get half as far.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And if we could just put that down for a second, because what that is constantly telling us is that we have to overdo everything. We have to be the ones to be over prepared for everybody else's failures, for their mediocrity. We have to bring our greatness and uplift them along with us. I'm looking like, no. This boat is not this tide is not here for that boat. I'm like, your boat got a hole in it and you want me to patch it while I lift us up? That's a lot of work.
Why
I'm looking like
you not go down in the water?
Sure. I'm looking like, if you want to be mediocre, if you want to be mediocre, go do it over there. But oftentimes that you got to work twice as hard mentality. This is why all of us are so daggone tired. We have over delivered on everything. And on top of that, it's this internalization of what that means, that because we also take the opposite, that other piece to be true, that something is wrong with us, that we have to show up, show out, and overdo in order for us to have any real value. And in a world that is constantly only valuing what you can produce, then I guess that makes sense. But I think that what we forget is that the real truth here is that no matter what you do, they don't like you. No matter what you do, that you are not going to be accepted. You are not going to be their special magical Negro until the day that they decide they don't like you no more. So it's just like you did all that work for a temporary accolade, for maybe a small boost in pay, for them to still talk shit about you behind your back. Okay. I'm like, work that way if you like, but that's counterproductive.
And it's just real. It's one of those things where it's just like, we do all of these things. We want the best for all of them. Because I just think there's like a warmth about Black culture that you just have to experience to be able to explain. I think that lends itself to an extent, like why the way we do what we do, in addition to the systemic and historical things that are ingrained into just like our fiber and our DNA. But then there's also this idea that like it's almost a part of like this performative expectation, like to earn our keep. Like we have to perform always. We're always on stage, and it's a different show in every room we walk in to be the type of woman or the type of Black woman, the type of person that they need at that moment so that we can earn our keep. And it's almost like, if I don't do this, how are my children going to eat? If I don't do this, how are my lights going to stay on? If I, and then it's the weight of when we're done code switching, we're speaking radically, like some of the things that we're saying now, then what is that going to mean for the culture? Or now we're somehow placed in the space of being the spokesperson for the culture, which come with its own other amount of weight. That is just like, I'm speaking up against what I feel is wrong and right, but that doesn't mean I want to be, marching for everybody. I mean, I want my people to grow and be better, but that doesn't mean I'm not leading the charge right now. I didn't sign up, I didn't sign up. But
when you sign up to live your life authentically, you become the spokesperson for everybody. because you turn into the example. You're the one that like, oh my gosh, look at them, they're so brave. Look at them, oh, they're speaking out.
Not today.
And I just be like, no. I'm like, there's a sense of bravery in being your authentic self. There's certainly something daring about it, because again, for Black people, for Black women, it can literally cost you your life.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, let's not let that be lost. But at the same time, it's just like, sometimes we have to serve as an example, and that is a weighty thing, but that's not why we do what we do. We can't do what we do to just be an example for somebody else. We also have to be living for us. Otherwise, we've done the same thing, but for Black people. Continuing being the mule.
I think Z's been trying to talk for a minute.
So much love. Yeah, I would just say that to really utilize our embodied wisdom and remember our self-determination to decide what to let go of, because it may be some aspects of the past or a narrative that is not serving us towards Black liberation. So whatever that is, that looks different for different people. So really figuring out what it is that's holding you back or preventing you from moving towards liberation, that can be let go of. And it can be complex, and it shows up differently in different bodies. So
that's it.
I gotta let go of politics and respectability. I let go of shame. It's a lot to put down.
I let go of the marches. I ain't going out there.
No, and I am not, but I'm gonna share it. I'm gonna share the post so that people can join you that want to, but I'm not. And that's
I might not do that.
It doesn't look different.
Okay. And the thing is,
have a role in the revolution.
Yep.
We can contribute in different ways. Not all of us are meant to be out in the streets. There are other ways to contribute to the movement.
Absolutely. It could be as huge as the work that Tamika is doing, or it could be as not even small, because I think this is still as impactful. It could just be as unique as a friend of mine was talking today that her new boss 3 times pronounced her name wrong. And I was like, and every time she says it wrong, correct her.
I was just start calling you something different. Let's do that.
I mean, but they had the nerve to say, well, do you have a nickname? I said,
the one you using? That could be the nickname and the name.
Are we friends though? So why are you calling me a nickname? We're not friends. I just met you, white lady. But anyway, so one thing I will say, if all the things that Black women do, have to do, endure, we do it and we look real good while we do it. So what is this idea? As we're growing up, I don't, some of you I will venture to say that most of us have either heard it directly towards us or someone else, that you are pretty for a ...
For a dark-skinned girl,
for a African, for a Black girl, for a tall girl, for a big girl, for all. Why is that not a compliment?
Because it's backhanded and underhanded and foolishness, and it is rooted in white supremacy. It is rooted in anti-Blackness. It is rooted in, I hate what you are, but you are the magical, beautiful Negro. And I have decided that you are the exception to the rule, while everybody else follows the rule and are thus less valuable than you, though you still don't have no value. You have this much more value because I have deemed you to be special or important or beautiful, while everybody else has fallen to the wayside. That's why it's not a compliment. It is a slap in the face to everybody's ancestors and to the people that brought you to be where you are today. It is foolishness. It is ugly. It takes too much time to say why it's stupid.
Well, I'll say I've actually never gotten that statement made about me. I had to stop short of saying a compliment. Mm-hmm. But inherent to it, I've heard it. I've just never had it brought to me, which is a whole other conversation. What I will say is inherent in it, it's rooted in the assumption that their opinion matters. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also a piece that needs to be teased out. The fact that people, especially those who are not Black women, who are not dark-skinned women or African Black women, or all of these different qualifiers that get put in there, deem themselves the appointers of beauty as it relates to our bodies. And it's like, it is backhanded because the assumption in it is that I have to make you feel better about yourself because I don't deem you to be worthy. And so I'm assuming that you don't deem yourself to be worthy. So I have to give you this compliment or this thing to make you feel like, oh, someone else has validated me, when honestly, your opinion does not matter. I'm fine. Or I am exactly who I intend myself to be. And I am the only marker that I need to be concerned about. So it is not.
I would even say that it's not even their opinion. It's the opinion that white supremacy gave them that they just shoot out of their own mouths. And they don't even recognize the inherentness of white supremacy when they open their mouths to say the thing. I'm looking like, is this your opinion? Is this your preference? Or is this something that you were indoctrinated into? Is this the cult mentality that something is inherently wrong with certain people who look a certain way? I'm like, might be time for you to check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Just work on yourself. Just
right.
don't.
And you know what's interesting? Because I think I would also think about, because I've heard that, but I've never heard
it.
It was said to me, but it was never said to me by a white person. It was another Black person. I wonder if like that's the thought of Black folk not recognizing how they also can be anti-Black. And how perpetuate white supremacist ideologies and things like that. And the thing is, like, and it was weird because when I heard it, I remember very vividly saying, but I'm not even that dark. And so like how like to say that you're pretty for a brown skin girl, I'm like, I felt like I'm normal. And at the time where I was a child, I was in like, it was just one of the things where I've heard it for other places. I was like, that doesn't even fit me. And to think about even doing that work, recognizing as from, studying, going to school and things like that, like we perpetuate anti-Black and white supremacist ideals as a culture as much as,
enough,
yeah, enough. Like where it's like they aren't the only ones perpetuating these ideas. Let me say that.
I would say that white folks say it differently. They might not say you're pretty for A. They'll just be like, oh, look at your skin. Oh, let me touch your hair. So then you become a little bit of a petting zoo. You become a little exhibit in an art show, a one-woman art show. So like, oh, I didn't realize that you would be in this class.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that you would get into this program. You must be really exceptional. And it's rooted in the same thing, something that says that you don't belong, that you're an anomaly, and that I must redress you to let you know that like I see that you don't belong here, and I certainly think you don't belong here. So let me give you something to give you a pat on the back. Let me help you feel good about your accomplishment. And that's something that I received at Widener. I almost cut somebody stone cold out at the daggone table. I'd have been kicked out.
Well, I'm going to
one piece of that I think is also important is that you are right, Brittany, in that I would venture to say there is nearly an equivalent amount of anti-Blackness that gets perpetuated in terms of the conversations we have with each other. And I say that's by design, because there has to be some internalized hatred in order for the external hatred to have strength.
No, say that. Can you say that one more time for the people? Because they can.
Like I can tell you all day you're ugly, but if you don't believe it, then that means nothing. Right. But you have to have some type of internalization that you are not worthy, that you are not ugly, or that people that embody this particular piece are not enough in order for it to have strength. And so, again, going back to the idea of healing and bringing in what Z brings up all the time so beautifully about the inner wisdom, it is knowing that anything that we see on the outside is a reflection of us on the inside, and it is an opportunity for us to do that inner work. And to release, what is it that leads me to believe that what this person is saying is valid? What is it that leads me to believe that this person saying that I'm not attractive or not, whatever, that that's valid, because once I remove that, then you can say whatever the hell you want. And it literally, like, just like with your name, I know what my name is. You can't tell me, so it's not like, oh, you said you call me Vanessa. Like, okay, whatever. That's not my name, you know. And it's the same thing,
right?
So I just think that's an important point to really think about and sit with in terms with us, and why it's so salient, and why the struggle is so real.
Mm-hmm. And even thinking about how far back those things go. And I think that we're going to get into it a little more in a few questions, but like things like statements that we use, like where we, again, those backhanded comments like, oh, you have good hair, and you know, all like that, this point in life where, like, in the early 90s when I was in high school, light skin, long hair, light eyes were like the prototype of all things beautiful, and how we, again, perpetuate those narratives. And even when we feel like we're being harmed less, the idea of making a statement saying you have good hair, and what you're not saying to a person who doesn't share that same, or what you are saying silently to the person that shares that that same hair texture. And we don't realize that. And some people think, oh, it's just language, but language really matters. So for language matters, representation matters, all those things matter. Let's talk for a second about Aviv.
Which one? Which one?
You were like, oh, this. I was like, are we going to talk about Aviv?
We will talk about Aviv. So for those of you who are watching who are not familiar with the show The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, one of the characters was Aunt Vivian
Banks.
I was going to say Huxtable. That's not it. That's not it.
Definitely not it.
Absolutely. Beautiful. The original Aviv,
Hubbard,
chocolate actress. She was bomb, a banging dancer, a dope mom. Like, her whole swag was just it. Then one season, he came back, and Aviv was somebody else. Woman. And so we and which also we'll talk about later, like where's the line between affirmation and divisiveness. Like we'll get into that later. But they're also a Black woman, but not who we came to know and love. Was that intentional? I mean, I know that later on in history it came out like something about money and finances and things like that. But if you also look at Aviv, you also look at Claire Kyle.
Yep.
Familiar with
My Wife and Kids.
My Wife and Kids. Claire Kyle, when they first started, another beautiful chocolate actress, and then a season or two later, another Black.
I don't even know if it was a whole 2 seasons. It was just
episodes. They will very easily switch us out, because I was watching Girlfriends and
Darnell
changed too, and I'm like, let me find out. You know, Flex went on, did his own thing with 101, but I was just like, so what is that? When media representation and white supremacist, Eurocentric ideas of beauty and things like that, what does that do for cultural self-esteem, if you will?
So I feel, I get the sense. Yes, I'm the oldest out of this group, right? Yes,
we might be the same age. You don't know.
Well, you know what we might be. I just turned 41.
Oh, I'm 32.
See, girl, I know. So I wanted to speak generationally, right? And because I do feel like there's been a difference in TV in maybe the last 10 to 15 to maybe even 20 years or so versus the 80s and the 90s when I was coming of age. And I know we were all coming of age, but it's different when you were a preteen and a teen during that time.
Yes.
And I remember that it meant something to just be on TV. Like I feel like my generation was the last little generation for whom, you know, you could still go and be on whole channels and not see any Black folks, where like the Cosby Show was it, and then A Different World was it. And so I think, yes, it does matter. In hindsight, looking back, I see that it matters. At that time, it was just enough to have somebody on. Just as long as they Black, and it's like, woo, great, you know? And I think looking back, I do see that there was effects. There's damage. And I'm actually going to bring in a quote from someone that I interviewed for my dissertation who talked about how it was never explicit, right? It was never an explicit, you're not enough, but it was always just clear that you weren't the one, Jesus. Right? You talked about when you were in high school and, you know, how light skin, whatever was preference. I never had an issue with my skin color, but what was always clear was that the light-skinned girl became homecoming queen, the light-skinned girl became prom queen, the light-skinned girl, and it was always just very clear, like, oh, mine is not considered. And it wasn't that I was considered ugly, but I just wasn't considered exceptional in any particular way because I was just average. I was just basic. I was just whatever. And then in my case, you add on weight. It was like, oh, you definitely not the one, child. You and so I think that is really, and I think too, that's how it becomes very ingrained. Yeah. And it's less of like, oh, this big struggle of injustice and pain. It's just this ever-growing psychological burden of feeling like, yeah, I'm just not enough. I'm just not going to be chosen, if you will.
Yeah. And I think of it as like it's like brown to dark skin. It's simply not considered. Not just not considered beautiful or great or worthy, but simply not seen. There's an invisibility almost in the skin tone that can erase you from conversation, that as long as anyone who is considered Black is present, that is enough. Even if that Black person is super light skinned, even if they could pass, that you don't matter enough for anybody to have even sought you out. And even worse, that there are people who think that the two lives are interchangeable, that the light-skinned life lived is the same as the dark-skinned life lived. I'm looking like the dark-skinned Aunt Viv would have never had the same experience as the light-skinned Aunt Viv. So that's how they also didn't behave in the same way. I felt like Aunt Viv of old was, you know, she spoke her mind. She was going to give it to you if she needed to. She would sit you down with love and with kindness and give you truth in that way. Whereas her entire personality changed along with her color, because we also consider lighter skinned women in particular to be more feminine, to be softer, to be worthy of
to be quiet, more,
that we would want to listen to them differently, but cuddle. And that you know, the strong Black woman is going to be this dark skinned person who has to do this extra in order for them to even be seen as worthy in some way, shape, or form. So I'm just like, the idea that the two are interchangeable, to me, it's a slap in the face.
Yeah.
To me, it is erasure, and to have erasure like that happen on Black shows by Black people, that for me is like, now granted, all the networks are white, so but still, it's this ease with which we will snatch dark people out, place light people in, and say that it is the same experience.
Yeah. Can I have to jump in. I feel like I'm playing double dutch, which is amen. This is the only way I know how to do it. So that whole idea, what you said, Donna, about a dark-skinned Black life is not often lived in the same way that a light-skinned Black life is. I want to bring this up kind of in reverse in the case of Hidden Figures. Mm-hmm. We don't talk about this, but Hidden Figures, we know the movie came out in Hidden Figures, and Taraji P. Henson was cast in the character of
erroneously cast. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. I forget the Catherine Goble, right? Mm-hmm. The amazing mathematical genius. Well, when you see Catherine Goble, when you see her in real life, she is light-skinned to the point of being able to pass.
Yes.
And what's interesting is that in Hidden Figures, they tell this false story about the bathrooms and how Catherine Goble had to run all out in the rain and do all of this stuff to like try to use the bathroom. And then the white man came and saved everybody, and we all pee the same color and all this other bull. But what was missed was the opportunity to tell what it probably was like for light-skinned Catherine Goble to be able to move about that space, and in some cases probably be perceived to be a white woman.
Yes.
Yep. Right? Like there's this whole this whole nuance that gets missed because we're so busy just saying, oh, well, they're Black. Just stick a Black face in there and it's cute. And
not even just missed, destroyed.
Yeah,
Destroyed. We are retelling history to make
Absolutely.
light-skinned, privileged Black folk feel better, the same way that white people like to retell stories to make themselves look better, like we all see the same color.
And
I'm
it's
just like, why are we doing that?
And so that's what brings up sorry, Dr. D, were you getting ready to say something before?
No, I just said absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that that's a good point to move here, is that when we think about colorism, texturism, Dr. Donna, you mentioned something earlier about preference and things like that. Like, where is the line between colorism and texturism and preference? And I think my sub question to that, or may actually even be a separate question, is what is the nuances of, as you said, light-skinned privileged women or people having, being in the front, living the same lives as because of their proximity to whiteness. What does that then do for a light-skinned person who's like, I'm light, my hair does what my hair does. Like, I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for this privilege. And it's, how do we move away from this, because you have this privilege, that there's a problem with you inherently, as opposed to a problem with the system? That may be two separate questions, but we can start with the colorism, texturism, preference line, as far as like mate selection and, things like that. And then we can move into the division versus affirmation question.
Yeah. I usually ask, where's the line between seeing a product or a person?
Okay.
So, I mean, we're talking about preferences. I'm like, number one, who gave you the preference? Who taught you that you should prefer for your partner, for your friends, for desirable family members to look a specific way? Who gave you the preference? Give it back. Return to sender. It's not yours. And if we did that, then would we actually have a preference for people's colors? Because if we're having the conversation about preference, then we'll also have to have a conversation about the commodity of human beings. Mm-hmm. That this is a byproduct. And if this is the byproduct and we see it as for what it is, a byproduct, then we're also having to have the conversation of, when we say that we prefer someone who is light-skinned, what are we saying that we actually prefer? We're saying that we prefer for our offspring to live an easier life. We are preferring for a partner that we think has more earning potential. We prefer to have a partner that we don't think is going to be as easily arrested by the police. We want the ambiguity, because the ambiguity also can bring safety. We want them to be Black, but not too Black, because we still want access to Blackness without having to have the full concentrated pain of being too daggone dark. So I'm looking like, let's really parse out what the preference is about. And usually the preference is, I had a hard life. I have not dealt with that well. And you're not required to deal with it well. You're only required to deal with it. So with all that, it's like, oh, well, I don't want to have to keep going through this. And I sometimes am looking for someone to validate my existence. And if I get picked, if they pick me, choose me, love me, then I know that I have value to someone else's eye. I have had this beautiful dark-skinned client that I've been working with. And one thing that I remember her very distinctly saying is that I look to my light-skinned grandmother to tell me that I'm pretty, because what would my dark-skinned mama know about it? Mm. So is your preference to find a partner who will validate your existence so that you can feel that you have value? Mm-hmm. That is my question.
So I wonder then, how does it work then in reverse? So for me, like we're talking about, we're sexologists here, and we're talking about attraction. And there is like literally chocolate dark men that make me like literally drool. And so when I think about my mate selection, I've never, like, when, what is his name with the curly hair from back into the singer?
Pick one. It's a bunch of them.
Diddy's baby's actual father.
I'll be sure.
Yes, him. But here's the thing, I was like, why and where? Like, I never, it was never my thing. But then
It was the whole thing, girl. It was
it was the whole thing, like a whole cultural experience of that.
Williams,
Yeah, all of them. And I was always like, where? And so when I think about a Trek, there's something just incomparable to me about a chocolate man. And then when I look at chocolate women, I'm just like, y'all just so banging. Like it's there. So, and when I had my children, I wanted nothing more than a chocolate chunky baby. And then my babies are just as light as they want to be. And I love them. God bless their heart. And I was like, I got a chocolate husband. I thought I was going to get me some chocolate babies. So if that same, what then would you say for preference in reverse? Like if I find myself as a able-bodied adult attracted to chocolate people. Like that's just my preference. That's I prefer, I would, if I got a choice between I'll be sure or Idris every single day. I don't care if Idris works mopping floors. I'm still picking him over the other one. So what then do you say to that?
I would say it's not the same because we're talking power and privilege. We're talking about entire systems. But I would also say that oftentimes when we're looking for that masculinity, we're looking for someone darker. And that's because we have associated darkness and the darkness of skin with masculinity, which is also why dark women are not as preferred because they're seen as being too masculine. So I would say that there is still rooted in some of that same stuff there. And that's some stuff that we've gotta pick out and parse out. But at the same time, I'm also like, well, there's also power and privilege that we also have to consider. So to me, it's just a touch different.
I was gonna say they're not. I was gonna say they're not. It's not the same, but they are definitely related. I mean, there's a reason why we have this thing of Drake feelings, right? We have this whole thing of acting like being in your light skin, right? Because you said it earlier, Donna. We associate light skin with softness and sensitivity. And well, yes, Idris does look better than Albie. So there was this moment of sexiness being attracted to like suaveness and sophistication, and the idea was that dark skinned men didn't do that because dark skinned men were thugs, right? So now that is kind of the shift in preference that's happened over the course of culture, right? Of the evolution of Black culture, but we also recognize that like. When we especially think about sexual attraction, very often femme folks want to feel soft, they want to feel protected, they want to feel taken care of, and the assumption in the schema that's in our head is that the big Black mulatto dude is gonna be, not mulatto, the big Black mandingo is gonna do that. And so I do think there's some unpacking to do in that as well, not only around the size and that sort of thing, but also penis size. Because we also assume that big Black mandingo got a big Black mandingo. And if he don't, then we got an issue with that without acknowledging that we are fetishizing as part of, and we're not allowing the space for the full capacity of Black mass folks to show up and be who they are and have what they have. So I think there's still some work to do even in that area.
So before we move to the next question, I just want to make sure folks in the comments wanting to, if we could summarize really quickly, if there is a space for preference, like for attraction in relationship and mate selection. Like is there, or should everybody just take whatever comes their way? Like, or can you say, I like this, I prefer this?
Don't waste nobody's time. If you don't like them, you don't like them. You do what you want. And also understand that you may in fact be upholding a upholding a system of oppression. And if you're okay with that, you're okay with that.
And remembering that over time, you're going to have to talk to this individual. So you may have chosen for their light skin, but do you like anything that come out their mouth? You may have chosen for their dark skin, but do you like anything that come out their mouth? I'm looking like if it's only about what they look like, it's not going to last.
But when we think about I'm not of the school of thought that in love at first sight. Like that's not a thing that I personally believe in. I think that there's attraction at first sight. I think there's like maybe arousal at first sight, but I think that love develops over time. So when we think about preference and mate selection, I'm just like, I like the way you look enough to find out if you have something to talk about and those type of things. Because the same thing outside of skin color, like I'm 5'9" in flats, well, depending on what boot I got on, 6'4". So if you are, and my children, my baby, my 10-year-old is already 5 feet. So we can't just all be in here taller than you. That's just like not going to happen. So I mean, I think that was a good.
And I think we can be clear, and I just want to keep acknowledging this. Z has not said anything, so we might want to let them in to have something to say. But I want to say too that I think far too often we have kind of groomed ourselves to believe that we need other people to validate our choices. And the reality of it is that you're gonna do what you want to do. And also, and the other thing I was gonna say is, well, let's also be clear that you may not care about love if you're just trying to hit it. Like you just may have a specific fantasy in your mind of what you want, and you find the you know, the chimera, the image of whatever that person is, and you fulfill that. That's your life. Get your life. And also understand that you are getting your colorist life. And that's what you're getting, and it's what you're getting. But I think far too often we wanna do the things that fit these isms, and then still want everybody to not call us on our shit. And it's like, I'm sorry, like just acknowledge. And the reality is,
if you partake, people will call you on your shit.
You know, and you determine how you feel about that. You
don't have to move your life according to what somebody else call out, but at the same time, somebody might go ahead and call you out. I mean, it's really going to be up to you after that, including up to your partner, because if somebody's like, oh, so this is all you've ever dated, like this is it, like that might end up being a problem, and you might end up sitting on my couch.
So we're moving right along. It's 9:05, and we have so we got about 30 minutes left, and I have a bunch of questions on the list that we're probably not going to get to, and I'm very sad about that. But I want to know, we talk about colorism, texturism, representation, all those things, the idea of the Black woman being the mule, and more likely that the dark-skinned woman is the one that's going to carry the brunt of the labor, where the fairer-skinned white light-skinned woman may get afforded privileges of rest. Let's just say that, because you know, if we look at the fact that, even think about Aunt Viv, and they were living in Bel Air in the mansion, it was almost like the light-skinned Aunt Viv was a better fit for that life. But we can't. So when we think about stuff like that, and we think about our VP, Kamala Harris, and we think about the amazing and literally life-saving work of Stacey Abrams in Georgia. I saw a post not long after the announcement that talked about people calling out the colorism and fat phobia that had Stacey doing the work and Kamala being number 2. So I would like for your thoughts on that, as well as where is the line between affirming a Black woman in a space doing the things and then causing divisiveness between, you know, Black women? Like, how do we address the issue, but then also not tear down a Black woman who also worked really hard to get where they are?
Mm-hmm. Sounds like, can I rephrase your second question? Because it sounds like you're saying, where's the line between calling out a Black woman for legit things, yeah, and being catty and shady and just starting mess. Is that what I'm understanding you to say?
That's not what I meant, but that's also really good. What I'm saying is, like, when we have two Black women in a space, how do we address discrimination or how do we support Kamala how do we support Stacey without tearing down Kamala? If that makes that clearer.
Got it.
I don't know. I think I see people with real grievances against Kamala.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about her track record. They're talking about her policies. They're talking about how she has shown up or not shown up specifically for people of color and Black people in particular. So any criticisms that I hear are actually legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing on the other end with Stacey. I'm like, people are able to point out what she has done for the Black community. So I'm like, for me, I don't see the comparison in that way. I wouldn't compare them. I don't think that they have done the same work. I don't think that they have served in the same way. And I think that that is the point that people are trying to make, that if you are looking for somebody that has done the work and upheld the Black community, then that is why there is a preference for Stacey. But Stacey would not have been picked because she is dark-skinned and nappy-haired and all this other stuff that would not necessarily get her in the same space. And if we're not going to acknowledge that, then we're having a portion of the conversation as opposed to a realness in the conversation. And that realness is necessary in order for us to really get somewhere. And I also agree with the comment that, generally speaking, when we're talking about divisiveness, this is an agent of white supremacy, because it means that we don't get to be critical and have real thoughts about who our supposed leaders are going to be. It means that we have to feel the same way that everybody feels simply because they're happy that somebody won. I'm just like, nothing has been more disrespectful to me than seeing those pictures of Kamala Harris abridged against Ruby Bridges. I was just like, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. Ruby Bridges, number one, is still alive. Number two, could not have lived the life that Kamala lived because she is a dark-skinned Black woman. So I'm just like, you think Ruby did it for her? I'm just like, come on now. Let's be real in the conversation. So I don't think it's divisiveness. For me personally, I don't see it as divisiveness. I'm going to let everybody else see how they're going to see it. But I'm just like, Kamala not my pick. She's what I got. I'm taking her. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that we don't get to be critical of her work, and how she has served or not served the Black community that she claims that she serves.
Yeah, I find it very hard to engage a discussion about who should be the better Black leader of a white supremacist, borderline fascist country. Like,
borderline?
And that goes back to what, y'all can argue borderline, but that goes back to what I said, the question earlier about what Black women need to be putting down. I think at some point, there was a point where I was all gung-ho about the idea of like, yes, Black women need to be president and vice president and blah, 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 blah. But what's become clear to me in the last 4 years is that this is the last thing we need to be giving our energy to. That's my personal take. Now, I get what had to happen in this past week because the world was falling apart. And I'm also of the mindset that this particular country needs to fall apart. If you think about how it came together, it's not sustainable. And so I am inclined to be like, actually, both of y'all need to go take care of yourself. I'm just hoping they take care of themselves, because this is not ours to fix. It's never been ours to fix. And I get that doesn't answer your question. So to answer your question,
the answer to the question is like we can prevent. Focusing on what we should be focusing on will prevent all of the divisiveness.
We start there. But then I think within our community, we will still have pieces where we need to tease out these nuances. And I think within that, we have to recognize there's a both and. Because people are going to automatically feel divided if you are calling them out on shit that divides. And I think the reality of that is that part of our healing work has to say, no, if I am calling out this thing, that does not mean that we are not community. That actually goes against our values as African people. Like that's never been where, I got an issue with you and now we separated. No, that's how we get through it. We talk through it. We're community. We get through it together. This, in my mind, it's a tool of white supremacy to say that I can't call you out on your bullshit, and then we can't come back together and be community once I've called you out on that bullshit. And so in my mind, it's like a both and of we calling it out. We might feel a little divided, but we coming back together. because we recognize we're all in this together. We recognize that we're community, that we do have the same goals, and that if you are calling me out on something, it is because you want me to be better. You want us to be better, and you want us to be able to be in community better with each other.
Exactly. That part right there. We don't have enough appreciation for the complainers, the squeaky wheels, the killjoys, and we should, because they're the reason we progress. When we call out something, when we call something in, it is because it is a problem and it needs to be resolved. We may not have the exact solution for you right here, right now, but that is not the job of the complainer, the killjoy, the squeaky wheel. The job of them is to simply point it out that this thing is a problem. Somebody else may offer a solution, but the solution should never be to silence them so that we can all kumbaya together while we continue to oppress people and think that it's okay. I can't get with it, because I agree with what Tracie, with what you said to me. That was just like that every day, all day. We are still community. We are still family. We are still looking out for each other. And just because I call you in doesn't mean I like you less.
And even
I call in my friends all day. Y'all know I'll be talking about y'all. I'll be like, so you just gonna do it like that? Okay, cool. But that doesn't mean that I love you less. It's because I call you out because I love you. I call you out from a place of kindness. I do not perform nicety.
That's the part. I think to the question about Kamala and Stacey, I think initially when Kamala was running for president, I saw the conversations about her history and how she hasn't done anything for the Black community, and and she's a cop, and all of those. I saw that, but then after she won, or after they won, and then the vice presidency, I think it was just that's when the colorism and the fat phobia conversation.
Well, and I think so there's this other piece of it, and I appreciate Erica for being in the space, because Erica, I have, as much as possible, tried to stay out of social media, to stay out of discussion, because I honestly, again, am trying to conserve my energy. But one of the pieces that they raised that I thought was really, important to think about is the fact that Stacey Abrams, out of the two of them, represents the closest connection to Black Americans. Mm-hmm. And I think that's significant, because not only would Stacey Abrams represent that, like the darker skin, the larger body, the nappy hair, all of that in power, but she also represents the connection to the folks who've never been heard. Right. Yeah. One of the things that the first thing after I saw that it had all came out and everybody was cheering and everybody's happy now, the first thing I said was, okay, so now that Black people have saved the vote yet again, what if we all decided in community with the people who swear that Black Lives Matter, that we're not voting in 2024 unless we get reparations? And the reason why I say this is, again, that now we see that there are Black folks being put in power. And this is the piece where I want to thank Erica for raising the point that someone else said. But these are two folks who we do not see have a direct connection to Black Americans, meaning people that were descendants of the transatlantic slave trade in the United States. Mm-hmm. And so that literally means that at no point yet have you had people who've been directly affected from the racist policies of the United States get a say in what gets done as a nation for those folks. And that's a problem. That's a problem. And like, that's something that needs to be called out. And so I think there's also, yes, we can look at aesthetics and what that looks like in terms of the image, but we also have to acknowledge what that signifies as well in terms of what the lack of Stacey Abrams and anybody who's connected to that system, because then that requires us to face that. That requires us to acknowledge, like, oh, here's this people who we continue to call on, we beg on, liberals and conservatives included. We continually say, oh, can y'all, and oh, we love y'all, and oh, can you, and oh, help us. And then don't do when it said, oh, well, can we talk about police brutality? Oh, well, I don't know. The police are blah, blah, blah. Can we talk about reparations? Oh, well, that's not realistic. Even though Marianne Williamson came with some numbers, can we start there at least? So I think it's like, sometimes I too also feel like as Black people, we get caught up in so much superficial that it's like there's layers under that to me seem more important.
Yeah.
So.
And so when we think
I don't
about
see those pieces as being particularly superficial, though, right? Because I'm when I think about like racism at large, racism is a colorism issue. They're not separate. So I'm just like, I think that in choosing Kamala and her skin tone, number one, it appeals. For a lot of people, it slaps. For a lot of people, that's exactly what they're looking for. They don't want to see a person that's fat because of all the words that we have then used to also to be in conjunction with fat, lazy, not smart, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We don't want someone that's dark skinned for all the words that come with that. Lazy.
Here's why I say
this, bitter, whatever. So
like I get you. I get that. And also I want to acknowledge that Clarence Thomas is dark skinned. Right, Herman Cain is dark skinned. Like it's like that to me. You can be dark skinned and be just as problematic and just as detrimental to the advancement of our people. So yes, I don't think we shouldn't have the conversations. I think it's important to not stop there. That's what I mean to say. Not stop at the skin color and not just make it seem like it's this aesthetic choice of like, oh, it's just sexier to have this light-skinned woman. It's like, no, it's sexy to have someone that is non-threatening and not going to raise the specific issues that affect the folks that have been most affected by racism in this country.
And also the conversation, as much as I love and the things that I'm wrestling with in myself, or not even wrestling, just thinking about, like when I'm up at 3 a.m, is that Obama's biracialness and his proximity to whiteness, if that also played a role in why, if Idris called him back into the conversation.
Oh, absolutely.
If he were the man running for president with the same skill set, same background, would the conversation be?
Let's be clear, Michelle almost messed it up for him. Michelle almost messed it up for him.
Can we just take a second, just acknowledge Michelle? Like literally, I'd say her name 3 times a day. Like
she's all things. And yet she talks about this. She talked about it in her book, how she was too black. She was too black femme for them. Like she had to soften and she had to, be supportive and not have your own opinion too much. You have to support him. He's not going to get in, right? And if the colors had been changed, if it had been, Barack had her skin color and she had Barack's skin color, that wasn't going to work. That wasn't going to work. So
I would even go further and say that if Barack was raised by his daddy, it would look a little bit different because we also have to remember that proximity to whiteness is not just in skin tone alone. It's in who raised you, because in that way, he almost becomes functionally white.
Oh, right. Because she's a single mom, right? She's a single, that sad single, she's living, that's the single motherhood that we value. That's the single motherhood that we have sympathy for. Not that, oh, you're a welfare queen and you sapping from the system and all this other bull that we say when you're black. But, she's a widow.
She persevered.
And, this man, he just left her. She's just so strong, and she's got his grandmother as well. Yeah, that fits the narrative.
So thank you, lady. That was good. That was great, actually. It was, and Dr. You made me think about parts of that question that I didn't think about. So I really appreciate that. So I want to talk about, we have, oh God, this has been so good, and we moving so fast. Oh my God. I want to think about, so they talk about progress and where we need to go. Eventually, our closing question, so you can begin to think about that now, but our closing question will be, what, as a culture, what do we need to do to level up? But we're not there yet. But I think about melanin and being melanated and Black Girl Magic and any other hashtag that you want to, related hashtag that is now trending. Is the social media virality matching the lived experience of Black women, of darker skinned Black women? Because again, like, we have your melanated auntie who I've loved on Instagram, and just like a number of like big names, if you will, where, melanin and dripping and shining and really darker skinned models wearing bright colors and, orange lipstick and all the things. And it gets millions and billions of likes and shares and things like that. Is that just in the social media space? Does it match the lived experience?
Question.
I would say that even in the social media space, it's light-skinned Johns. I'm looking like the natural hair movement, this love your skin movement. All of this it's trending whiter. It's moving away from its origins. It's moving toward the lighter skin. It's moving toward the straighter hair. So I'm just like, the more it becomes mainstream, the whiter it seems to become. So no, it doesn't. Not really. I think that among certain space, it is there and it is strong and it is beautiful to see. I think that it is changing so many people's minds about what they are, what they look like, and changing how they are trying to change how they are relating to themselves. But on the larger scheme of things, I think that so very many of whatever it is that Black folk create get co-opted. And now I'm looking like now it's curly hair movement. It's everybody's got melanin, and I'm just like, it seems to be moving in a very different direction.
Z, you want to talk?
Y'all got it covered. I mean, not all skin folk are kinfolk. Okay. And my question is just like, to what extent are we assisting in Black liberation? And so you're covering all of it. So I
will say, so Brittany, to answer your question, I don't think it's just a trend, at least among adult women. And I think there's still a lot of work to be done with younger girls in particular. Some of this I think is regional, right? I think if you're in spaces where there's a lot more skin texture diversity, a lot more cultural Black diversity, a lot less contending with whiteness. So places like New York City, DC, where you can kind of be in enclaves of other Black people loving and building on each other. It's less of that. And I think when you get younger and you get into places like Milwaukee, Wisconsin, when you get into places that are like overrun with whiteness, it is something that's just it's a hashtag. I think the challenge really does become, how can I translate what's happening in social media in my real life? Because that's not how I feel when I go out on this street corner. That's not how I feel when I turn on the radio and there's only one Black station. That's not how I feel when I go into the classroom and the teacher cuts my hair because I'm playing with my beads, or the security guard wants to drag me out of my classroom because I want my head down because my mom, because I haven't eaten, or because my mom just died, or whatever, right? So I think there's lots of nuances to it in texture. And I think as adult femmes, I think there's an opportunity for us to begin to think about the young ones coming up under us and how can we translate this message there? Because you still have, like, at the same time we have all of these adult women who are healing the little girls in themselves who didn't get this message. There's still little girls who aren't getting this message, right? Who they may get it when they're like 4 and 5 and they're cute, the way that Black children are done when they're 4 and 5 and they're really young. Oh, you're so cute, you're so pretty for a dark girl, you're so adorable. And then when they get old enough to be a threat, then it's less you're pretty, it's less you're attractive, it's more, I don't know about that melanin, right? And so it's complex to me, and I think there's work that has to be done to kind of get at those spaces where it's not it's not trending in that way.
Word.
And I think
I guess being here in the DMV, I'm just like, it does feel for me in a lot of ways like it is sort of trending. In space, it feels deeper. But then I'm also looking at gentrification. I'm looking like melanin plus gentrification. I'm looking like DC is not what it used to be. It is no longer Chocolate City. It is now mocha, and it is getting lighter every day. So these enclaves are also going away. We are watching them move. We're watching people migrate out because they can't even afford to stay there. So for me, I'm just like, I think it's a both and. I don't think it's an either or. And I think that it has a very real possibility that it goes in the same way of being completely of being even more co-opted, the same way that the natural hair movement has been co-opted. That now, whose hair do you really see as being the acceptable natural hair? Because it ain't for C, it ain't for ABC, and even then it's like, yes, there are people who are wanting to internalize it, and I'm seeing those people come to therapy, which is great, because I think they will give the gift of breaking the cycle of colorism and texturism that was born within them. I think they are the ones that are going to break the cycle of not passing it on to younger cousins, sisters, siblings, whatever, and to their own children. I think that is worthy of note. And at the same time, I'm just like, I am scared that it is moving toward trend as it becomes lighter, especially in larger social media spaces.
And I think my fear also with that is the trend, getting past trend to gimmick to even like fetish and things, so that the honor and the affirmation is not genuine. It's like the latest Louis rag having, a dark skinned woman, on your arm or being related to or connected to.
Well, that's cyclical too. That's cyclical too. Because in the 60s, that was a fetish, right? To have a dark skinned girl to make you feel more woke and more conscious. So, we also acknowledge that there's trends and sometimes things go around and they come around.
Yeah. Well, we are now at our 5-minute mark, and I'm going to go ahead and say that this was just absolutely amazing. And I want to close out on your voices. So what I will do is remind everybody that November 28th, My Vulva and Me is coming out. Make sure you pre-order now, because I guarantee, if the God I serve promised me, that the first printing is going to sell out. And I also want to, Dr. Donna, I meant to have cocoa butter and hair grease like here, but it's in my rum bookshelf. There you go. So
this cocoa butter?
Yes, that cocoa butter. So when you answer the closing question, make sure you bring that up. I also want to mention that I also want to acknowledge all of the Black women that I am representing today, that every joint counted. Sure, because Pennsylvania showed up. Oh, I understand your people's positions on politics and things like that. Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Black women in Philadelphia, we showed up, and every joint counted. So I'm not of the position of at least we have, but in this situation, I think I'm a little.
It matters.
At least we don't have, Agent Orange in the place. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead with that. So this is by Joining the City. Make sure you follow them if you would like yours. I also this here. Oh, the face is by Lisa Broaddus. God bless her, rest her soul. But this beats, let me get into the camera. Lisa Adams and Lisa Brown of Lily Rose, thank you so very much. I told you for, by, and about Black women. Everything on me is Black in my presentation, because I stand for Black women. I stand for all three of you, and I truly appreciate you. So if you all can take the time, and we have 3 minutes, there's 3 of you all. What do we need to do as a culture to level up?
I just gonna kind of say pleasure is your birthright, and to take responsibility for your emancipation, your emotional emancipation, your erotic emancipation, and no amount of trauma that you experience will devalue your work. And your genitals don't define your gender. So self-care, communal care, and Black liberation. That's what I got. Peace and love.
And tell folks where they can find you, Dr. Z.
Zelaika.com is the best link for all the social media stuff. So I'm at Dr. Zell on Instagram, and you can catch me on my website.
Awesome. Thank you. Tracie?
Heal. Everything that Z said, heal. It's heal. Yes, we've experienced a lot of suffering, and also at any point we can let that go and do new things, right? Like we can start something new, and we, at this particular moment in society, we must. If we are going to survive, if we are going to continue thriving in the ways that Black people have been doing since, again, time immemorial, we must heal. Do the work to heal. You can find me at Thembi Anaiya.
Thank you, Dr.
I feel like they done said it. Heal. We have to do our work. our work is too important, and it is integral to how we move from just surviving to thriving and to living. And living, that's where our pleasure is. That's where we're going to find all the little things that we're wanting for ourselves. And that requires us to do the work so that we can level all the way up.
And where can folks find you in Cocoa Butter?
You can find me at AnnodRight.com, and you can find Cocoa Butter and Hair Grease at AnnodRight.com or CocoaButterandHairGrease.com. And please submit your story for the blog. We pay you to write.
And tell them real quick what Cocoa Butter and Hair Grease is, please and thank you.
Cocoa Butter and Hair Grease, a self-love journey through hair and skin, is a workbook designed specifically for Black women to heal all the stuff that we received, all those messages that we got about our skin tone and about our hair texture. Because doing the work, number one, is not easy, but it is necessary. And when we do that work, we level all the way up. So it is 12 weeks of work that you could have gotten in therapy, but at the low price of $29.95, as opposed to what, $150 a session. So I'm just saying, you know, get a couple of your friends together and have some hard conversations.
Awesome. And thank you to our guests. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. This was a really amazing conversation. We have the most comments on this episode than any other one. So
oh wow.
For you all, make sure you if you are watching this on the replay, welcome. How you doing? And we will be back at it for our closing week next week on the 17th and the 19th. On the 17th, we have It Does Matter If You're Black or White. And that will we will be looking at the experiences of Black women in traditionally or historically white spaces or niches. And then we will also be on the Clarke season finale is called Girlfriend. Girlfriend is a Different World Living Single. And that's where we will look at Black women in relationships, friendships, and business partnerships through the lens of pop culture icons like Joan Carroll Clayton, Whitley Gilbert, Regine Hunter, and all of those people.
My fave.
Absolutely. So make sure you catch us back 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Tuesday and Thursday, and on November the 22nd at 7 p.m. will be the release extravaganza for My Vulva and Me, the anthology for, by, and about Black women. We will have a live show by Brandy Briz Grove, who is the singer and creator of our theme song, My Vulva. I can't sing, but so what? It's a bop. And I'm so excited. We will have Melissa Fredericks, the co-host of the Love Hour, who wrote the foreword for this book. And I am so grateful for you all. It will be tuned. It will be live streamed on Facebook and YouTube. And again, thank you to my guests. Y'all don't hang up when this is over. And so we will catch you on Tuesday and Thursday of next week. Bye.